Cowboys spent their days having gunfights and chasing outlaws, right? Wrong. The real life of a cowboy was nothing like the Hollywood movies show you. It was brutal, boring, and way more disgusting than you'd ever imagine. Hollywood gave us the romantic version. Heroic cowboys riding into the sunset, winning gunfights, romancing beautiful women, and living free on the open range. The reality cowboys were poorly paid laborers doing backbreaking work in terrible conditions, eating the same awful food every day and dealing with problems that movies never show. Let's start with what cowboys actually did all day, because it wasn't exciting. It was repetitive, exhausting, and often disgusting work that would make most modern people quit after a single day. Riding in the saddle for 12 to 16 hours straight, not a leisurely ride through beautiful scenery. We're talking about sitting on a horse for the entire day, every day, for months on end. Your body wasn't designed for this, and it showed. The physical toll was immediate and severe. Saddle sores developed within days. These weren't minor irritations, these were open, bleeding wounds on your inner thighs and buttocks caused by constant friction between your body and the saddle. A Cowboy's Diary from 1878 describes the pain. My saddle sores are so bad I can barely sit down. Every movement is agony, but I have to keep riding. There's no choice. The cattle don't stop moving just because I'm in pain. The sores would get infected. Cowboys would rub bacon grease on them, which wasn't sterile, but was better than nothing. Some cowboys developed permanent scars from saddle sores that never fully healed. Your legs would cramp from being in the same position for hours. Your back would ache from the constant jarring motion. Your hands would develop calluses and blisters from holding the reins. And this was just the physical damage from riding. The weather made everything worse. In summer, you'd ride in 100-degree heat with no shade. The sun would beat down on you for 12 hours straight. You'd sweat through your clothes within an hour, and the salt from your sweat would make the saddle sores burn even more. A Cowboy's Letter from 1880 describes summer riding. The heat is unbearable. I'm soaked with sweat from dawn to dusk. My clothes are stiff with dried salt. The saddle chafes my legs raw. I drink water constantly, but I'm always thirsty. By the end of the day, I'm so exhausted I can barely dismount. In winter, you'd ride in freezing temperatures with inadequate clothing. Cowboys couldn't afford heavy winter coats. They'd layer whatever clothes they had and hope it was enough. Frostbite was common. Fingers, toes, ears, and noses would freeze, sometimes resulting in permanent damage. A trail boss's account from 1876 describes winter conditions. We hit a cold snap in Wyoming. Temperatures dropped below zero. 3 of my men got frostbite. One lost 2 toes, another lost part of his ear. We had to keep moving despite the cold. The cattle don't care about the weather. Rain was its own special misery. You'd get soaked and stay soaked for days. Your clothes would never fully dry. You'd sleep in wet clothes, wake up in wet clothes, and ride all day in wet clothes. This led to skin problems, infections, and constant discomfort. And what were cowboys doing during all this riding? Mostly just watching cattle. That's it. Watching to make sure they didn't wander off, watching to make sure they kept moving in the right direction, hour after hour of just watching cattle. A Cowboy's Memoir from 1881 describes the monotony people think being a cowboy is exciting. It's not, it's boring. You ride alongside cattle all day, every day. Nothing happens. You just watch them walk. It's mind-numbing. The only excitement is when something goes wrong and then you wish it was boring again. The boredom was broken by moments of terror. Stampedes could happen at any moment, triggered by anything. A clap of thunder, a rattlesnake, a coyote howl. Suddenly 2,000 head of cattle would be running blind and you'd have to ride alongside them at full gallop in the dark, trying to turn them before they scattered across miles of prairie. A Cowboy's account from 1879 describes a stampede. Lightning struck near the herd around midnight. The cattle exploded into motion. I was on night watch. I had seconds to get on my horse and start riding. We rode for over an hour in complete darkness, firing our guns and shouting, trying to turn the herd. My horse nearly went down twice. If I'd fallen, I'd have been trampled to death. River crossings were another moment of terror. Getting 2,000 cattle across a fast-moving river was dangerous for everyone involved. Cattle would panic in the water, cowboys would be swept downstream. Horses would lose their footing. People drowned regularly. A trail boss's journal from 1873 describes a river crossing. Lost 2 men crossing the Canadian River today. The current was stronger than expected. Their horses went down and they were swept away. We searched for hours but never found the bodies. We buried their saddles and said a prayer, then we kept moving. The drive doesn't stop for death. Now let's talk about what cowboys ate, because Hollywood never shows this part accurately. Cowboys didn't eat hearty, delicious meals around the campfire. They ate the same terrible food every single day until they were sick of it. Beans and salt pork, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, every day, for months. The same meal, cooked the same way until you couldn't stand the sight of it anymore. A Cowboy's Diary from 1877 describes the diet. Beans again, always beans. I've eaten beans twice a day for 6 weeks. Straight. I'm so sick of beans I want to vomit when I smell them cooking. But it's beans or nothing, so I eat my beans. The beans were cooked in a pot over the campfire, flavored with chunks of salt pork. The salt pork was so salty you had to soak it in water first, and even then it was almost inedible. But it was protein and fat, which cowboys needed. Hardtack was the other staple. These rock-hard biscuits were so tough you couldn't bite through them. You had to soak them in coffee to make them soft enough to chew. They had no flavor except whatever they soaked up. A Cowboy's letter from 1880 describes hardtack. The hardtack is so old and hard it could be used as ammunition. I soak it in my coffee every morning until it's soft enough to eat. It tastes like nothing. But it fills your stomach, which is all that matters. Coffee was essential, but it was terrible coffee. Boiled until it was thick and bitter, often mixed with chicory to stretch it further. Cowboys would drink it black because there was no milk or sugar. They drink it constantly because it was one of the few pleasures available. A trail cook's notes from 1875 describe making coffee. I make coffee strong enough to float a horseshoe. The boys complain it's too bitter, but they drink it anyway. We go through 5 pounds of coffee per week for 12 men. It's the only thing that keeps them going. Occasionally, if they were lucky, cowboys might get fresh meat. If a steer was injured and had to be butchered, they'd feast on fresh beef for a day or two. But this was rare. Most of the time it was beans, salt pork, hardtack, and coffee. The lack of vegetables meant cowboys suffered from nutritional deficiencies. Scurvy was common. Bleeding gums, loose teeth, weakness, and fatigue were all symptoms of vitamin C deficiency caused by eating nothing but meat and beans. A doctor's report from a cattle town in 1879 describes treating cowboys. Many of the cowboys arriving from long drives show signs of scurvy. Their gums are bleeding, their teeth are loose, and they're weak and exhausted. I prescribe fresh vegetables and fruit, but most can't afford them. They'll eat a few good meals in town, then head back out on another drive eating the same terrible diet. Now let's talk about hygiene, because this is where the reality gets truly disgusting. Cowboys didn't bathe. Not occasionally, not rarely. They didn't bathe at all during cattle drives that lasted months. There was no opportunity to bathe. You were on the move constantly. There were no facilities. Water was too precious to waste on bathing, so cowboys would go 2, 3, even 4 months without bathing. A cowboy's memoir from 1882 describes the smell. After 2 months on the trail, we all stank like animals. You could smell a cowboy from 50 feet away. We were covered in dirt, sweat, and cattle dung. Our clothes were stiff with dried sweat and grime. But everyone smelled the same, so you stopped noticing after a while. Cowboys slept in their clothes, the same clothes they wore all day they slept in at night. They might wear the same clothes for the entire drive, never changing, never washing them. The clothes would become so filthy they could almost stand up on their own. Lice were universal. Every cowboy had lice, body lice, head lice, pubic lice. They were just part of life. Cowboys would sit around the campfire picking lice off each other like monkeys grooming. A cowboy's diary from 1876 describes dealing with lice. The lice are driving me crazy. They're everywhere. I spend my evenings picking them out of my clothes and hair, but they always come back. There's no way to get rid of them out here. You just learn to live with the itching. Dental hygiene didn't exist. Cowboys never brushed their teeth. By age 30, many cowboys had lost most of their teeth. Tooth decay was universal. Toothaches were common and excruciating, but there was no dentist on the trail. A cowboy's letter from 1878 describes a toothache. I've had a toothache for 3 days. The pain is unbearable. I can't eat, can't sleep. One of the other cowboys offered to pull it with pliers, but I'm too scared. I'm just suffering through it, hoping it gets better. It won't, but what choice do I have? Cowboys would use their knives to dig food out of their teeth. They'd chew on twigs to clean their teeth. But mostly they just let their teeth rot. Dental care was for rich people in cities, not for cowboys on the trail. The sleeping arrangements were miserable. Cowboys didn't have tents. They slept on the ground, wrapped in a single blanket, regardless of the weather. In rain, they'd get soaked. In cold, they'd freeze. In heat, they'd sweat. There was no comfort, no protection, no privacy. A cowboy's account from 1880 describes sleeping conditions. We sleep on the hard ground with rocks digging into our backs. One thin blanket is all we have. In winter, I wake up with frost on my blanket. In summer, I wake up covered in mosquito bites. I never get a good night's sleep. I'm always tired. Cowboys would sleep in shifts because someone always had to be on night watch, circling the herd to prevent stampedes. You might get 4 or 5 hours of sleep per night if you were lucky, often less. The constant sleep deprivation made everything harder. Cowboys were exhausted all the time. They'd fall asleep in the saddle, they'd make mistakes from fatigue, but there was no option to rest. The work had to be done. Now let's talk about the pay, because this is where the Hollywood myth really falls apart. Cowboys weren't independent, free-spirited adventurers. They were poorly paid laborers with almost no rights and no job security. A typical cowboy earned $1 per day, or about $30 per month. This was barely enough to survive. After paying for basic necessities, there was almost nothing left. A cowboy's account book from 1877 shows his expenses. Monthly wages, $30. Food in town, $5. Tobacco, $2. Whiskey, $3. New boots, $5. Clothing repairs, $3. Sent home to family, $10. Remaining, $2. That $2 had to cover everything else: entertainment, emergencies, savings. Most cowboys had no savings. They lived paycheck to paycheck, one injury or illness away from destitution. The work was seasonal. Cattle drives happened in spring and summer. In winter, most cowboys were unemployed. They'd spend their savings trying to survive until spring, often ending up broke and desperate. A cowboy's letter from 1879 describes winter unemployment. The drive season is over. I'm out of work until spring. I've got about $20 saved. That has to last me 4 months. I'm staying in a cheap boarding house, eating as little as possible, trying to make the money stretch. I'll probably be broke by February. Cowboys had no benefits, no insurance, no retirement. If you got injured and couldn't work, you were on your own. If you got too old to do the work, you were discarded. There was no safety net. A trail boss's account from 1875 describes an injured cowboy. One of my men broke his leg when his horse fell. I paid him his wages to date and left him in the nearest town. I had to. I couldn't carry a man who couldn't work. I don't know what happened to him. Probably ended up begging on the streets. The work was dangerous. Cowboys died regularly from stampedes, river crossings, falls from horses, snake bites, and various accidents. There was no compensation for families. If you died, your family got nothing. A newspaper report from 1878 describes cowboy deaths. 3 cowboys were killed this month in separate incidents on cattle drives. One was trampled in a stampede, one drowned in a river crossing, one was thrown from his horse and broke his neck. Their families received no compensation. The trail bosses simply hired replacements and continued north. Now let's talk about the violence, because Hollywood gets this completely wrong. Cowboys didn't have frequent gunfights. Most cowboys never fired their gun at another person. But violence was still a constant presence in different ways. Cowboys fought each other. After months of stress, exhaustion, and close quarters, tempers would flare. Fistfights were common. Sometimes they'd escalate to knife fights or even shootings. A trail boss's journal from 1876 describes a fight. 2 of my men got into a fight over a card game. Started with words, escalated to fists, ended with one pulling a knife. The other man was stabbed in the shoulder. I patched him up as best I could and fired both of them. I can't have that kind of trouble on my drive. The real violence came from the work itself. Being kicked by a horse, trampled by cattle, thrown and dragged, bitten by snakes, or injured in countless other ways. This was daily reality. A cowboy's memoir from 1881 describes injuries. I've been kicked by horses more times than I can count. I've got scars all over my body, broken ribs, broken fingers, a broken collarbone. I've been bitten by a rattlesnake. I've been thrown from my horse and knocked unconscious. This work destroys your body. By age 40, most cowboys were physically broken. Their bodies were worn out from years of abuse. Many couldn't continue the work and had to find other employment, usually manual labor that paid even less. The loneliness was another aspect Hollywood never shows. Cowboys spent months away from civilization, away from women, away from family. The isolation was psychologically damaging. A cowboy's letter from 1878 describes the loneliness. I haven't seen a woman in 3 months. I haven't had a real conversation with anyone outside the crew. I haven't slept in a real bed or eaten a real meal. I'm starting to forget what normal life feels like. This isolation makes you crazy. When cowboys finally reached a town at the end of a drive, they'd often go wild. Months of pent-up frustration would explode in drinking, gambling, fighting, and visiting prostitutes. They'd blow their entire wages in a few days, then be broke again. A newspaper account from Dodge City in 1877 describes cowboy behavior. The cowboys arrived in town yesterday after a 3-month drive. By nightfall, every saloon was packed. Fights broke out in the streets. Gunshots were fired. The sheriff arrested a dozen men for drunk and disorderly conduct. This happens every time a drive arrives. The cowboys are like wild animals, released from captivity. This wasn't freedom or adventure. This was the behavior of men who'd been pushed to their psychological limits and had no healthy way to cope. The racism and discrimination were also real and ugly. Black cowboys, Mexican vaqueros, and Native American cowboys all worked cattle drives, but they faced constant discrimination and were usually paid less than white cowboys for the same work. A black cowboy's account from 1879 describes discrimination. I do the same work as the white cowboys, but I get paid less. I'm not allowed to eat with them or sleep near them. They treat me like I'm less than human, but I need the work, so I endure it. Mexican vaqueros, who actually invented most cowboy techniques, were often treated as inferior despite being more skilled than many white cowboys. The reality of cowboy life was harsh, brutal, and unglamorous. It was low-paid manual labor in terrible conditions with no benefits, no security, and no future. Most cowboys did it because they had no better options, not because it was romantic or exciting. A cowboy's reflection from 1880 sums it up. People think being a cowboy is glamorous. It's not. It's hard, dirty, dangerous work that pays almost nothing. You're cold, hot, wet, tired, hungry, and in pain all the time. You have no home, no family, no future. You do it because you have to, not because you want to. Anyone who thinks this life is romantic has never lived it. The cowboy era lasted only about 20 years, from the late 1860s to the mid-1880s. Then railroads expanded, barbed wire fenced the open range, and the need for long cattle drives disappeared. Most cowboys moved on to other work, their bodies broken and their savings non-existent. Hollywood gave us the myth of the cowboy as a heroic, independent figure living free on the open range. The reality was far different. Cowboys were exploited laborers doing brutal work for poverty wages, suffering through conditions that would be considered inhumane today. The next time you watch a Western movie, remember the real cowboys. Remember the saddle sores, the terrible food, the months without bathing, the constant exhaustion, the poverty wages, and the broken bodies. That's the real story of cowboys in the Wild West, and it's nothing like what Hollywood shows you.